hard for me to even begin to explain how Doug Ford's incompetence has made the housing crisis in Ontario significantly worse. Because the province is wildly behind on its building targets, and even very, very aggressive policies won't make a dent. Like, remember how less than a year ago, Doug Ford said that Olivia Chow would be an unmitigated disaster for Toronto and make housing worse? Well, guess what city is the most successful in Ontario for building new housing this year? It's Toronto, and now Doug Ford is attacking the Liberals, saying that they should be more like the NDP Mayor Olivia Chow. Because Doug doesn't actually care about getting houses built, he cares about attacking his political opponents. And the second they become useful to him, he'll stop attacking them and start praising them. And Ford's trying to say that the government has reached 99% of its housing target in 2023, but that is wildly untrue, with the government's own data proving that. And now Ford is so desperate to boost his housing numbers that he is counting old long-term care beds and already finished basements as part of our housing numbers. So long-term care beds that have already existed in Ontario and basements that were already finished in Ontario and renting people out are now counted as finished houses, new finished houses in Ontario. And Ford had set a goal for 1.5 million new homes by 2023, but it's already wildly out of date. Partially because Doug Ford opened the floodgates to international students in Ontario, leading to a massive uptick in population that StatsCan couldn't account for. You see that giant red population spike right there? That's Doug Ford's international student crisis. You know what makes this whole thing more embarrassing than anything else? It's that the most successful province in Canada for building new housing is the NDP government in British Columbia. And when the NDP were asked why they were so successful, they were just like, oh yeah, Ontario had commissioned a report and we just followed the recommendations. Remember how Doug Ford commissioned a massive affordability task force report and then he followed none of the recommendations? Yeah, well, BC just did that. If Doug Ford had followed his own government's recommendations, Ontario would be one of the best provinces in Canada for housing right now. But instead, he's praising the NDP mayor of Toronto for doing his job for him. Because I've said this before and I'll say it again, Doug Ford can't govern. He is incompetent and incapable of doing so.